You, for 8 days, did not know what your test results were after your husband and you know, that your child were going to test positive. How do you feel about those kinds of delays?
It's frustrating. And the reality was that I got tested simply because I had attended the funeral of Rayshard Brooks and just decided to get my family tested at the same time, but simply because I could. I didn't get those results back until 8 days later. By that time, my husband was not feeling well. He was sleeping a lot. I can't even say it was so much he wasn't feeling well. He was just sleeping a lot. We got tested again. I got those results back the same day. The next day, I got the previous test results back and saw that my child was asymptomatic. So we had an asymptomatic child in the house. My husband and I at that time were negative. This is the story we are hearing all across America. And certainly, had we gotten those results back sooner, then we could have taken additional precautions because my husband and I were both negative at that time.
And you had subsequently been with your mother, who is older, obviously. Do you know whether your other children have any positive results?
Well, thankfully, we've all now been tested. My mother is negative, and 3 of my other children are negative as well. And this is the frustrating part about COVID. And it's really not a big mystery as to why we can't get to the other side of this as a country. We have to perfect this testing. And Donald Trump has to take responsibility for us being able to get rapid testing in this country, because it's the only way the asymptomatic people like me will be able to quarantine and not inadvertently expose other people to this virus.
You're now going up Governor Brian Kemp in that you are now requiring by executive order that people wear masks in Atlanta. You're prohibiting non-essential gatherings of more than 10 people. You're going well beyond what the governor is requiring for Georgia. Why are you doing that, and how can you maintain those mandates when the governor is not doing it for the rest of the state?
The governor is not doing enough for our state, and his leadership has been irresponsible. We opened up very quickly. We are now seeing the results of that. Our COVID numbers are as high as they've ever been. I followed the lead of other mayors across our state, including Van Johnson in Savannah, who mandated that masks be worn in Savannah. And so he did that a week prior. I wanted to wait and see what the governor's response would be to that. That mandate has not been challenged, and so Atlanta has followed suit. And we have to continue to take responsibility for ourselves, because there's a lack of leadership in our state, and there's a lack of leadership from the White House. And unfortunately, our governor and the president are on the same page. I don't control the Atlanta public schools, but I trust that they are going to be thoughtful about their reopening plan. And if anything, this president needs to focus on how do we get technology expanded into all of our school systems? How do we expand broadband so that if we are faced with children having to go through virtual learning again in the fall, that they all have access to technology and broadband? That's where he can better use his efforts and not the theatrics that he continues to spew from the White House.
You've got a lot on your plate, not only, of course, the protests against the police, but now this horrible case, which has nothing to do with the police, which is the death of this 8-year-old little girl. You've been making appeals against violence to your people in Atlanta. How are you handling all of that, and what can mayors do?
Well, there are a couple of things that we can do, Andrea. One, we can address the immediate challenges that are before us. And it's heartbreaking that this beautiful 8-year-old child was killed in its balance. And unfortunately, we've seen that repeated throughout the country over the past few weeks. So we can continue to up our patrols in our neighborhoods and continue to be as present as we possibly can. I've asked people to please, so if you are out and things are feeling volatile and it seems like it's headed in the wrong direction, please remove yourself, because what we are seeing in Atlanta, we are having these shootings with mass gatherings and multiple shooters. That is something that we've not experienced on this scale in our city. And I know, again, in talking with other mayors, it's being repeated across this country. But then the other part is this systemic issue that we face related to all of the issues of equity, and people are out of work and people are dying of COVID. These systemic issues related to access to health care, jobs, et cetera, and even trauma care, because so many in our communities have post-traumatic stress syndrome and don't even know to call it that, but it's boiling up and it's spilling out, and unfortunately, innocent children and lives are being lost.
And amidst all this tragedy and crisis, does any of that give you pause about remaining in contention to be the running mate for Joe Biden?
You know, I don't give a lot of thought to that, Andrea. I don't have the luxury of giving thought to it. I have a very big job in front of me, and to the extent that my name is being discussed, that's a discussion for other people to have. But my focus remains on Atlanta.